Welcome to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, the show that gives you advice on everything travel. We explore places you've always wanted to go, as well as giving tips for traveling in those places. We'll give you advice on the best sites for travel tips, information, and discounts. Join us as we travel the world, explore cultures, and meet new people. The Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast has got you covered.
Thank you for tuning in to the GSMC Travel Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Chambers. Hello, everyone. Welcome. I hope you are all safe and healthy no matter where you are in the world. It's time to get cozy and get in the mood to talk some travel. That's right. Today, we're going to be talking about how social media has changed the travel industry and useful travel apps that you may want to have for your next trip. Also, is it worth it to pay for high-end luggage? And stick around to the end of the show where I give you my personal recommendation on preferred luggage that you should get. Now, let's dive right in. Today, in the first segment, we're talking about social media and how it's changed the travel industry. And I don't think anyone can argue the fact that social media has changed the travel industry. You have so many sites, apps, ways of promoting different businesses, tourism industries, online, through social media. It's almost becoming overwhelming. If you look at all the businesses that never used to use social media, I feel if you don't or are not utilizing social media as a tourism business, then you're not going to survive in this day and age. Everything is moving in that direction. Just look at a site such as TripAdvisor. TripAdvisor, along with plenty of other social media platforms, and that includes Facebook and Twitter, are now some of the most popular mediums for travel-related research. Most millennials or younger travel seekers or adventurers are now utilizing social media to discover or find what their next destination is going to be, and they need to have that validation, I feel. Not that that's not bad or that's a bad thing, but TripAdvisor can be extremely helpful because you're getting firsthand experience from somebody or you're getting their word that had experienced exactly what you want to know. Everyone can form their own opinions. And the thing is, it can be hit or miss. Regardless of what you're using, everyone's travel experience is going to be what you make it or how you structure it. So by saying that, by going on TripAdvisor, I'm getting high ratings on this hotel or this destination, it's going to be fabulous, it's going to be the best. Well, it might be, and they may be good recommendations, and they may fit your style or what you want to do on your trip, but that doesn't mean it's exactly what you want. So you have to kind of be careful about things like that. And it's a back and forth type of situation where you're looking at social media and relying on it completely. I don't agree with relying on it completely. I think you need to do your research, and I think social media has become brilliant for ways of researching your trip. And TripAdvisor, it's revolutionized in a lot of senses the online travel research or the way that people do their online research. Because how great is it to go on and see somebody who stayed at a hotel that you were looking at last night or a week ago and gave their experience, shared their pictures, let you know how the staff was, what the accommodations were. They will tell you if things on the company's website was exactly as advertised. I mean, it's just a great way to validate what you're thinking of. Social media sites allow the prospective travelers to check other people's check-ins, photos, feedbacks. It's, Pinterest and Twitter and Instagram. I mean, these are all ways of being able to see pictures that are not altered. But I say that as a society, we love to create the Instagram pictures and we love to make them look beautiful and use all the filters and cool things. So I still think that you have to be careful and you need to look at a variety of social media when checking trips and ideas and places that you're wanting to go. I mean, people they share photos of their holidays with their friends and family now. It's like a common thing. Usually when you used to go on the family or the holiday trips, you would go on family holiday trips and that was it. Then you would tell everyone about what happened and you'd have all these stories when you came back. Now it feels as if it's a must that you're going to go on a family trip and you're going to take these photos and say, I'm with the family and let them know what's going on. It's just become the norm, I guess, because people like to see what others are doing. We get on and we troll through social media, and that also helps inspire a lot of different ideas. People will travel somewhere and see someone else's pictures or post, and they say, wow, that would be a great trip, and they start researching things. I think that's brilliant. I mean, what they're calling the Instagram effect, which has an outsized impact on travel plans among millennials. And I really see that. And I'm not a millennial, but I still will utilize Instagram to see and check out certain things. I also love YouTube. That's another great resource that I've utilized when researching trips, because my wife and I used to go to the bookstore and we used to get books and travel books, and we go in that section and we'd get those destination books of specific places that we were interested, or we'd browse through and then we'd see, oh, I'm interested in that place. And then we'd start reading up, and she would read it cover to cover, mark the pages and things that we wanted to do, because it had all the information about hotels and where to stay and what restaurants and attractions. And it was great. It was all right there in your hand. And now you really don't have that need. I mean, unless you are just one of those people that need the tangible book anymore. Not that they're not useful, but there's so many resources online and with social media that people are projecting out there for you to see firsthand what's going on, what prices they're paying, how their trip was. I mean, people have vlogs now of their entire trip and what you need to do and places you can go, and you can actually see what it's like versus relying on the words that you're reading or seeing the company's website. And that's the other thing. It's changed how these companies have to approach the traveler today. You think about the marketing that they have to do, and those that are smaller now are having to get into the social media game just to keep up with everybody else, because there's so many different programs and ways to book. And we'll talk about a couple of the apps and travel things that you can get into in our next segment. But it's just become a different game with traveling. And I don't know if it's better or worse, but there's a lot more. And more information, I guess, is never a bad thing. But when you're trying to narrow it down, or if you have one of those people that can't decide or make decisions where you want to go, what you want to do, too much information can feel like so much and just an overload. So I still recommend doing and going through travel agents, because I think their knowledge is still some of the best that you can find. Finding those travel agents that have been there, experienced it, is just as good as going online and finding people that are on their trip and documenting everything. Because again, the difference between TripAdvisor and those that are on their own trip is that that's their trip, not yours. So by taking their experience, you're kind of limiting yourself on what they're saying and assuming that their trip is speaking to exactly what you want. It may be helpful in a way, but those travel agents, that's their job. They know the area. They know what is going on with the hotels and the pricing and everything else. And they're there to take the load off of you from doing all that research. So I think you need to rely on those travel agents still, because they want to tailor a trip that is meant just for you, not for somebody else. Because really, everybody online that's posting their pictures, they care about their trip. They care about what's going on. And as they should. You should be caring about yours. So I think you just need to be aware of what you're getting into. Social media, to me, has really just become a big photo op in a lot of senses. I think it's wonderful because there's pictures and gorgeous things that people are taking photos of that you may never experience. But I think it's getting to the point when it's how many likes can I get because I took this great photo, not can you imagine what I'm just looking at? You know, I think there's a big difference between the two. That's why I like to see the vloggers and the travel vloggers that you get to experience what they're experiencing. I love watching those, and YouTube's a great place. There's a couple that I personally love to watch, and it's really just them documenting what they're doing. They're not out to persuade anybody. They are just showing you what they're getting a chance to experience and how incredible it is to them. So it's kind of through their eyes. So this whole online of Instagram and things like that, to me, is not as engaging as those videos. Now, you have to be careful because there are a couple of companies that will post videos about the top destinations and the top and again, they do a great job with some of those, but it is their preference. So you have to really still do your own research. And there's always that one place that you want to go or had thought about. Don't let someone dissuade you because you saw or they had a bad review on TripAdvisor. You know, do your own digging on top of it. Don't just take word of mouth with the first thing you read. And I think there's the change right there. It's time consuming to go through hundreds and thousands of posts and pictures and tweets and things about different things in the travel industry. And you can get really swallowed up in all of that. I mean, really, how many times have you gone on to Amazon and read the reviews and you read, oh, all these wonderful reviews, but then you get sucked in and start reading all these bad reviews about the same thing. No one is ever going to be satisfied. But social media has completely changed the travel game. There's more information at our fingertips. There's more accessibility. There's more ways of marketing. I mean, there's hotels that you never would have even known about except for going on social media and it being advertised. And you look at the airlines too. They utilize the social media aspect for showing you that there's deals out there. Most people aren't like me where they just go on, you know, the airline websites randomly and just start looking at destinations that they're interested in to see if there are flights that are cheap or maybe you're thinking about a trip in a little bit and so they try to, I'm like that. I go on these airline websites and multiple, not just the ones that give you all of the discounts. I actually go on the actual airline websites along with all the cheap flights and things like that. And I plug in and I compare. And I'll spend a couple hours doing that, looking at different flights, time of year, things like that. That's just me. And you have to really do that. But that's where social media can come in handy. Being able to compare so many different things, it also kind of levels the playing field for some of those larger industries with the hotels and the airlines that they can't overcharge for certain flights. And if they do, you're going to go and you're going to find a different and cheaper flight. So I think social media has changed travel for the better, but you just have to be careful. One company that we love to use is American Express because we're with them, and they have a really great. If you have an American Express if you're with American Express Travel, they have a really wonderful website that you can check out hotels that are affiliated and book through and how many perks you get by booking through them. So there's a lot of different ones like that. That's one for us that we use. But it's just a small part of how social media has completely changed because normally we would have thought about going straight to a travel agent and asking and telling them, yep, we trust you. But now even with the travel agent, which we love and we use their knowledge with, we still do our own research. And I think that's the difference, and that's what social media has created. And many people have decided now to take on their own trips. And I think that's great. It's still a lot of work. I mean, traveling is wonderful and exciting, but you really have to be a planner. And sometimes that's not everyone's strong suit, and they don't want to have to deal with that. And again, as I was saying earlier, too many options can be overwhelming for some people, and some people love having those options. So I leave it up to you. I think social media has changed travel for the better, but it still isn't taking over what we used to do, and that is your own research, reading the books, travel agents. I still think they're all essential. I just think social media has completely changed the game and made everything more accessible in a larger scale. So I think that's great, because ultimately our goal is to travel, I think, and enjoy and explore the world. So kudos to social media for that. Coming up, we're going to talk about useful travel apps that you might want to have when you go on that next trip.
Are you tired of the same old news? Are you sick of the seemingly endless political spin and negativity? The GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast is a weekly news podcast covering all the top positive and uplifting news stories. We cover stories that will inspire, uplift, and remind you of the good in the world. Tune into the Golden State Media Concepts America Still Beautiful podcast to get all the great and positive news stories of today. Download the GSMC America Still Beautiful podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Welcome back, and thanks for staying with us. We just finished talking about how social media has impacted the travel industry for better or worse. And I have to agree, it is for better. It has made things a lot more competitive and given a lot more information out there, but it is, in my opinion, for better. And make sure you stick around to the end of the show so you can find out what my preferred luggage brand is. There's a lot of brands out there, and I have a preferred brand, and stick around and I will share that with you and why. So we're going to get into travel apps, things that have become like packing your socks and your underwear. You have to make sure that your phone is packed too. Pack your phone with different apps and different things that you're going to need on your trip is almost the same as making sure those passports and plane tickets and currency and everything else is in order, on top of all your toilet essentials and things like that you have to bring. You never would have thought about something like that about 20 years ago, but it is. It's true. They're helpful. It's great. And I'm going to talk about a couple, some that are to me a little bit higher ranked than I would of others, but some of the apps are very interesting and things that I plan on looking into on my next trip. I'm going to start with one. It's called Lounge Buddy. And Lounge Buddy basically takes the painstaking process out of trying to find a place where you can hang out in the airport. Because a lot of times when you have those long layovers or you get there early and you have to wait for your flight or things get canceled, you don't want to just sit at the gate in those uncomfortable chairs. You want to find somewhere a little bit better that you can hang out, one of those lounges. And not every lounge requires a membership, but there are some that do. We personally have our preferred lounge that we go to from United because we fly with United a lot, so we get to use their access to their lounge. But if you don't have access to the United lounge or one of these other ones, by finding and using the app Lounge Buddy, it tells you which lounges you can access at any given airport. So if you're going to a different airport and you know you have a long layover, you can use this app to look up and see what lounges are available and what you can access. So it's one that you might want to consider, especially if you're one of those people that likes to get the early flight, but then of course you need that connect. You have that long layover for the connection. You might want to look into this app. Another one is called the Sky Scanner. Okay, the Sky Scanner. it's a preferred method for finding cheap flights. Now, I have a few apps on here that I will recommend for cheap flights, but this is one. It searches millions of flights, over 1,200 sources, and then gives you the best options available, whether it's the cheapest rate or the easiest one. It has a chart that lets you look at the cheapest days or the months to find your destination, and it sends you notifications of any price changes. So it's a great little app to have, especially if you're in the middle of trying to find that perfect flight, or you're going somewhere and that you want to spend a little bit more maybe on your excursions or hotels. This might be an option to have on your phone to check out. And sometimes, if you're on a business trip or you're making a last minute flight, these are really great apps to utilize to find those discounted prices, because flights can get a little pricey at times. And also, they don't want to have empty flights. I mean, they're fueling up those jets and they're flying people. And if they have empty seats, they're going to want to fill them. So if you find and use this app, Skyscanner, you might be able to find that extra cheap flight or that extra ticket to that destination where you didn't think you can afford at the moment, but it just opened up. So it's another app to look at. Along with that app, as far as an airline app, Hopper is another great one. I've actually used this one a lot more. It helps travelers find the cheapest flights possible, similar to Skyscanner. And the interface or the whole experience with Hopper to me was a little bit more appealing, which is why I prefer it. If you have dates that are set in stone, this is really a great app for you to really use. Because once you put them in your home city and your desired destination, Hopper shows you a calendar of the upcoming year with dates color-coded and reflected, with his prices of past flights during those times and things like that. So it's really, if you're knowing or have a very specific date or trip planned, Hopper's a really great one. I've utilized this plenty of times. Skyscanner, not as much, but I have looked on it a few times. I prefer Hopper, but they're both really great. So I think if you're looking for those cheaper flights and if you know your travel plans, either one of these are going to be a great option for you to use. So, it's moving a little away from flights into hotels. I mean, there's different ways of finding hotels. I am interested to see nowadays most of my friends are using Airbnb a lot more than I ever would have thought. And Airbnb is a great option because it takes away the hotel and it gives you, someone's personal home or a more authentic experience, or it could be a more authentic experience. But Airbnb is basically an app where you can look on and find available places that are put up by private owners, and you can rent them or get them by the day or by the week or by the month, whatever the stipulations are. They have rules and check-in dates, and some of them you don't even have to meet with the owner. You can check in right there online and then show up at your destination. It's really great. Depending where you're going, I recommend Airbnb, but always be diligent and always ask questions. That's my number one thing with Airbnb. Use the preferred bookers and things like that, but it can be a great app. And if you're doing something a little bit more local or road trip type-esque, I think Airbnb is a great option. When you're going overseas, when you're not familiar with the area, it can be a hit and miss, but I've had friends that stayed, and they went to Italy and they stayed in places where they used an Airbnb, and they had their own kitchen and bathrooms and their own, so they felt like a lot more of an authentic experience, and they really enjoyed it. And it's one thing that I'm always interested in. I find myself looking on Airbnb more and more. I just don't think that I have taken the plunge yet, because there's so many really incredible hotels and experiences that I want to go experience and see. So Airbnb is definitely one to check out. A lot of people need it. And especially, let's say you want to stay an extra night. You're there and you don't want to pay the premium price of whatever hotel you were staying at, or you want to make a day trip somewhere else before checking, into your flight and change up your plans. Airbnb can be a really neat option to do one of those day trips instead of having to take a 2-hour trip there and back, So I think it's a great option, and I think most people know Airbnb well, so I put it as one of those apps that's useful for travel. Another one is Hotel Tonight. Hotel Tonight to me is fantastic because it gives you this amazing last-minute discounts, or all those last-minute discounts on the empty hotel rooms. The hotels, again, like airlines, they don't want their services empty. They don't want to be flying a plane with no passengers. They don't want to have a hotel every night with 0 guests. So Hotels Tonight can give you some amazing deals for last-minute discounts. So if you know that you're making that trip to visit a friend or family, or you just decided to get away for a quick weekend, Hotels Tonight. Check it out. Go on there, put in your dates. You can sometimes find some incredible deals on some 4- and 5-star rated hotels. It's really great. I always check, because even if you have something booked and they have make sure you check your cancellation policy, because sometimes if it's less than 24 hours, you can't cancel. But if you have a great cancellation policy, or if it's a little more than 24 hours or 48 hours, check on Hotels Tonight and see if maybe there's the place that you really wanted to stay and find just an incredible discount, and then cancel your other plans. I think it's really great. So and they also have 24/7 customer service. So that's another great thing for travelers. Okay, for all of you that are not really into wanting to fly everywhere and you want to find your own route on the road, I have an app that is great for you. It's called Road Trippers. It's perfect for organizing the epic road trip that you've always wanted to take. It not only plans your driving route, but it also lets you book hotels and activities along the way. So it's an app especially useful for finding interesting and off-the-beaten-path roadside attractions, as well as unique or really great experiences with different restaurants, and also those landmarks that you just can't miss. It can bookmark all kinds of things for you on your trip. It's basically a road trip planner, and that's why it's called Road Trippers. It's a great app. I think if you're going to make that road trip cross country, or you just wanted to save a little bit of money and drive to your destination, but you know it's going to be a little bit longer, you might want to look at this app and help plan out the trip a little bit more. It could make it a little bit more enjoyable instead of driving that 16 to 20 hours across country or whatever you're doing. This may be a great way to break up your trip and make a little bit more of it than just getting at that one destination. If you're anything like me, I love experiencing things along the way. So if we're flying and we have a long layover, if it's possible to get out of the airport, I always love to do it. Same thing with road trips. If we're road tripping, sometimes you just want to get to the destination if you know that you've made that trip of several times. But if you're going somewhere new, I remember we were going up to Tennessee, and it was a long drive, so we stopped in New Orleans, but there was in Tupelo and all these other places that just made the trip a really unique experience that I won't forget. So check out Road Trippers as an app. It's definitely something you want to have. Now, if we're going overseas, there's a few apps that I highly recommend, and most of you already know some of these, but just to put in the back of your mind, if they're not on your phone, you might want to put them on there. And this one is pretty obvious to me if you're going across seas: Google Translate. Now, there's plenty of translate apps out there. Google Translate, they just are incredible with what they keep doing and updating. And if you're traveling to a country and you don't know the language, even if you do, I think it's good to have, because sometimes our pronunciations aren't correct, or we have a miscommunication with some certain words or something like that. I think it's just a great thing to have. It allows you to do it all pretty much. You can translate into 103 languages by typing and accessing nearly 60 languages offline. You can use handwriting in 93 languages. That's where you get to draw text or characters instead of typing, and that can be really helpful. It also offers camera translation in 37 languages. It's where you point your camera and snap it for an instant translation. And it has two-way instant speech translation. Which is available in 32 languages. So that's a lot of options, and I think that's a fantastic tool to have. And you imagine going on a trip, when I think about my parents when they traveled overseas to China years ago before I was born, when they were younger, and to think that they had to figure out how to do things on their own and use those books and translate words or find someone that could help them. It's just having a tool like this and an app that could help you translate and have a complete conversation with someone that didn't even speak the language on both sides is incredible. So Google Translate is a wonderful app to have. I highly recommend it. There are plenty out there, but I'm going to throw this one out as my go-to. The next app is a metric conversions app. Okay, here in the U.S., we all know how much we love pounds and Fahrenheit and things like that. But when you go overseas, they are using Celsius and kilos and things like that, kilometers. It's you have to be able to convert. Sometimes it's hard. If you're not used to it, going back and forth can kind of drive you nuts. So don't worry. You don't have to go crazy. If you get this app, it's called the Metric Conversions, and it can help you convert all of your apps. So whether you're measuring, food that, at the market to take home to your Airbnb, or you're trying to figure out distances on a road trip or something, you can use this app to kind of do it all. If you don't know what the temperature is going to be the next day where you're staying and it's saying, it's going to be 20 degrees Celsius and you have no idea what that is, you can use the Metric Conversions to help you with that. So definitely something to have. Now, I'm going to throw out two more, and this is most people have these already, but I'm just going to throw out two more that I think that are important when you travel. One is Google or Apple Maps. I'm a big Apple person, so I love Apple, but Google Maps is fantastic. Helps you tremendously because you can now type in or put in walking paths and bike paths, no matter what kind of form of transportation, transit, car, rail, whatever you're doing, they have, and it's just on there, and it makes it so much easier, so you don't have to pull out that massive map. And to be honest, I can't remember the last time that I've seen anyone pull out like a map, an actual map, to look around a city. So Google Maps or Apple Maps, definitely have it on your phone. And the other one I'm going to say is a rideshare, either Uber or Lyft, or look whatever country you're traveling in, or if you're in the U.S., look to get either Lyft or Uber if they have it, because it's a safety thing. I mean, you can be a little more secure than having to flag down that taxi, that random taxi that you don't know is going to rip you off. You don't have to do any kind of exchange with them. It's all done right there in your app, so you know what you're paying for. It just makes it a little bit of an easier experience. So there you go. Those are some apps that I think you guys need to have. So if you don't, look into them. There's plenty out there. These are some recommendations, but if you have any that you want to share with me, let us know at GSMC. We'd love to hear it. Coming up after the break, we're going to talk about, is it worth it to pay for high-end luggage?
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back, everyone. We were just talking about those great apps that you're going to want to have on that next trip. We're going to jump into talking about, is it worth it to pay for that high-end luggage? But stick around to the end because I'm going to give you my number one recommended brand of luggage that you might want to look into getting. So everyone talks about high-end luggage. Is it really worth it? Because let's be real. Luggage can start to cost more than your trip if you're not careful. I mean, there's some luggage that you can get that is more than probably twice the amount of what you're going to spend on your next trip. So everyone says, well, it's not really worth it. Why should I spend that much on what I'm going to carry my stuff in when I want to spend it on the experience? True, you have a point there. And for many, many years, I was like that. I had luggage or bags and things that I just used that were cheap or that I could find on discount at, a store or, places like Marshall's or Walmart or wherever it was, and I was like, I'm only going to spend it on this. I need it for only a certain amount of things, and that's what it's going to be good for. Now, when we travel, the trick to survival is minimizing the number of things that can go wrong. And when you buy cheaper luggage, there's a higher risk that things can go wrong. I mean, it's stressful to have to think about, did my luggage make it? Did my stuff on my trip really get there? Did it get damaged in transit? And you don't want to have to deal with that stress. So, cheap luggage before you get it, think about the fact, is this going to last? Is this really going to last? And are you really going to want to keep spending money on luggage? Because if you spend, let's say, $40 or $50 on a piece of luggage and it breaks, or it only lasts you, let's say, a year, and then you have to get something else, and you spend another $40 or $50 on that, and that only lasts you about a year or less, who knows? And by the time, within 5 years, you would have spent probably the amount of something that could have been really nice that would have lasted you for 10, 15, 20 years, right? So you have to kind of think about that. You also want to think about what you're bringing and the items in your bag. I mean, do you want your things safe? Are you doing it for business? Because if you have cheap luggage and things like that, and you have suits and other business things that are things that you're traveling with, and computers and electronics, you want those things to be secure and safe. So investing in luggage is, in my opinion, very worth it, and something that you don't think of, to be honest, when you're younger. And this goes to my own experience. When I was in my 20s, I was living overseas in South Korea, and I needed extra luggage. And I was coming back, and I was doing a trip home quickly, and the luggage suitcase that I had brought had broken or fallen apart, and so I needed to get a new piece of luggage. And I was over there living, and I was trying to save money, and I was more on a budget at that time. So I remember going to this store in the market area where I lived in Seoul, and I found a great suitcase that was a great size. It looked like it could fit my needs, and it would satisfy, myself for the next few years. It wasn't super expensive. It wasn't the cheapest thing, but it wasn't super expensive. I ended up getting it. It lasted 1.5 flights. After I had 2 flights to get home, because I had to fly overseas. I had to land in California and San Francisco, and then get a connecting flight and land back in Houston. And when I got off the plane in San Francisco, I had to get my luggage, because you had to go through customs and get your luggage and then check into the domestic terminal. So I had gotten my luggage after going through before going through customs, and I had noticed that part of the handle was a little loose and something felt a little wobbly on the wheels. And so I was like, well, okay, well, it's still fine. It's working for me. By the time I checked it and then got to Houston, part of the handle had already broken. One of the wheels was a little wonky. And so it lasted literally 2 flights. And so I had spent this money on this suitcase thinking that it could last longer than that. And it literally, I might as well have just mailed all my stuff home. It would have probably been cheaper. I wouldn't have to deal with it. that was just one instance for me. Another was actually a little bit later. I had a carry-on bag that I got. It was a little bit more upgrade than what I would call my suitcase from Korea that I got in Seoul. But it was still on the cheaper side. It was a business suitcase, and it was pretty durable, and I was really happy with it, a great carry-on. And I was traveling in Chicago. I had it for probably a few years, probably 2 or 3 years. So for me, it felt like a really great piece of luggage. And I was in Chicago with a buddy, and our flight was delayed. And so, we were going to spend some time. We had to catch a flight. We had like an 8-hour delay. So we went into the city, and, we had to carry our bags with us. And I'm rolling my bag down the street, and all of a sudden I feel this jerking on my suitcase. And I look down, and one of the wheels, the rubber on one of the wheels completely went off and snapped, and the wheel was kind of wonky. And I was dragging it on one wheel and basically having to carry my suitcase around because I couldn't actually wheel it all around pretty much for like 6 or 7 hours, around the Chicago area when we were waiting for our flight. So it was really miserable. And that was when I said, no, that's not going to happen anymore. I'm not using anything but the luggage that I want to use. And so I said I wanted to invest in it. Investment, that's right. And that's what it is. It's really an investment that you have to look at. And you can get, brands like Travel Pro, which is the flight cruise that they swear by, or, the brands like Briggs and Riley, which have lifetime warranties. And that includes damage by airlines. Or you can go with another brand like Rimowa, which is a luxury brand that's a lot of celebrities use. But as long as you have something that is sturdy and you really research into it, it's completely worth it. Even to pay a couple $100, even to pay $400 for a suitcase that's going to last you for what might feel like a lifetime. To me, that's completely worth it because it also gives you peace of mind. And that's even more important, especially when you have all of your things that you're transporting with you. A sturdy suitcase, like I said, is something that'll help make that travel experience less stressful. I tended to use, going back to a little bit, I tended to use a combination of like a small bag and a backpack everywhere I go. And, at a certain point, when you get to a certain age, you don't want to be hauling a lot of stuff on your back, and you want something, either a carry-on or some kind of suitcase that you can check that your things are going to be secure, it's sturdy enough, it's going to last, and it just makes your experience in your travel a little bit more worth it. Even if it is, a little bit more of an upscale backpack or something that's going to be a little sturdier and it's not going to, handles and straps are ripping off and things like that. So I highly recommend you investing in something a little bit higher end. Now that doesn't mean you have to spend the highest amount of money to get the best bag, because there are some luxury brands of suitcase that you can get that are really high quality, that you don't have to spend thousands of dollars on a single piece of luggage. I think that some of the luxury brands can get a little bit ridiculous with some of the prices, but the quality of them is so fantastic. And when you use them, you're just impressed so much that you think about, well, you know what? I need a bigger suitcase. That one, it is expensive, but it is totally worth it because it will last. And I can't really recommend some of these brands enough. You look at the durability. The cheaper the bag, the odds are it's not going to last. If you check a bag at the airport, just think about everyone who handles your bag. All the crew and all the handlers that move your bag from place to place, getting it to and from wherever it needs to be, whatever flight you have to be on. Think of the abuse that luggage really gets. If you really just take a second, if you were working and you were a crew, would you necessarily be handling everybody's bag with the utmost care, that like as if it were your own? No, you got a job to do. You got to load this flight. You got more coming in. You got to unload that flight. You got to check these bags. Airports are crazy. There's this rush, this hassle that's going on. So as much as we want, you want them to care for your bags, there is a tempo and this urgency that has to happen with it as well. So you think about the abuse that your bag's going to get. Right now, I think you're thinking, maybe something a little more sturdy and paying for a little bit more higher quality is starting to sound a little bit better. And how you move around with your bag. I mean, that was something that people over the years have just weighed in on in leaps and bounds. You know, when you're in the airport and you're bringing your bags around, I want you to look around next time you're at the airport, because I guarantee 90% of the people you're going to see moving bags around have wheels on them of some kind. Most these days have 4 wheels. That seems to be the trend that's happening, because it's just easier just to kind of push something along. I still have a bag. It's a high-end, what we consider a luxury suitcase, but it has 2 wheels, and it still works beautifully. I love my bag completely, and it's worth it. It was totally worth the price. But my wife has one that has 4 wheels, and for her, she loves that, just to push that along. She puts her backpack or her purse on top of it on the handle, and she moves it along really well. So those are what I guess you would call wheelability around the airports. And those are things that are really important, I think, now to people as they're traveling, because, again, less stress. You're not hauling luggage unless you have to be carrying lots of kids and baby bags and things like that. I mean, to be honest, wheels weren't added to suitcases until the 1970s. That was after mass air travel really took off. So in the 1970s is when you first kind of saw wheels in this sense of, we need an easier way to haul luggage around than just carrying it. And you think about where you're going and how much luggage you're taking. That's another reason that you should look into something a little bit more durable. And again, this is coming from a personal level here. I used cheap luggage or things that suited me for many, many years. Now, do I think that everyone has to go out and buy high-end luxury suitcases? No, you're going to be able to travel without it. But there is a sense of relief a little bit knowing that your suitcase is not going to fall apart, or if you see someone toss it on the ground or move it, you're not going to be concerned about what's inside or the durability or something happening to your suitcase. And to be honest, they look great. They also look great. I mean, who doesn't want to look good when you're carrying your stuff? I mean, I think all of us are lying a little bit to ourselves if we say, I don't really want to look good carrying my stuff. Now, that's not the point of travel, but it never hurts when you look good with what you're using. So consider a higher end suitcase. It doesn't have to be the highest end, but I really encourage you to look and research some of the brands that are out there, because the durability is unreal. And it's going to last you a lot longer. And again, think of all the suitcases that you've owned over the years. Just think how much you've actually spent on suitcases. Wouldn't you like to take all of those purchases that you made and make 1 to 2 purchases that will cover the next 15 to 20 years? Some of the brands have lifetime warranties. Some of them, when something actually does happen, because the quality that they expect with their brand, they will replace it. You know, you get a cheaper brand and something happens or goes wrong with it and you call them up, the chances of them replacing it are not as high. Let's just say that. You know, and that's why you get it. Now, if you're a backpacker and you're staying in hostels and things like that, obviously you're more on a budget-friendly type of traveler, then this is probably not going to be for you. But you think about a high-end backpacker's backpack that you would want to get. It's another investment. If that's all you have to use, think about the abuse that you're going to have on that bag or all the places you're going to stay. You're going to want something that's going to last. So no matter if you're looking at being the adventurous hostel traveler or being more of a, I want the relaxed and relations first class type of traveler, or everything in between, a high quality piece of luggage, whether it's a backpack, suitcase, carry-on, strap, handbag, I mean, they all are worth it. It makes the experience a little bit better for you knowing that it's one less thing you have to even think about. So I highly, highly recommend you guys invest. So make that investment, give yourself that peace of mind, and enjoy your trip carefree, worrying about whether your luggage is going to be there in one piece and have that long durability. It's going to be great, I promise. Stay with me, because when we come back, I'm going to give you my top-rated luggage brand.
The GSMC Life and Happiness podcast takes you on a journey of exploration. We'll discuss tried and true methods alongside the latest trends of how to best live your life to its fullest and happiest. From psychology to meditation, science to self-help books, the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast will help you to discover what makes you happy and how you can live life being the best you possible. Download the GSMC Life and Happiness podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
Just discussing, is it worth it to get that high-end luxury brand of suitcase? And with a resounding yes, I really believe that having a quality piece of luggage when you travel is extremely worth it, and it makes it just hassle and stress-free. Plus, you know it's going to last. You know the materials are going to be great. Now, how much you want to spend on that luggage is really up to you. I don't think you have to spend more than what your trip cost on a piece of luggage. But remember, it's about an investment. But as promised, I'm going to give you my top-rated luggage brand. All right? So here we go. My top-rated luggage brand is Tumi. Yes, Tumi. I am in love with the Tumi brand. I know that everyone has their own preferences, and there are so many out there. There are plenty of really good quality pieces of luggage, but Tumi, to me, was a brand that I invested in on myself, my wife, both. We have several pieces of their luggage. And the only reason that we buy other pieces of luggage is because they complement or add to what style of trips that we're taking, and we haven't had to replace them. Every piece of luggage that we've gotten has been an addition just because we wanted either a smaller bag to use with that on certain trips, or just different styles or bags that we use for our trips. And we haven't really needed to purchase anything else since we've had them. And they completely last. I love them I love them so much. Tumi is a great, great company. It was founded in 1975, but in 2016, the Tumi company was bought by the Samsonite Corporation. And Samsonite is a recommended brand for a lot of luggage. So you know that there's quality there, and they've been doing it for a very, very long time. So Tumi is my preferred brand, and I'm going to give you a couple reasons why. And after you hear some of them, I bet you'll be interested in going and checking them out. Every item from Tumi, from their bags or all their other travel essentials and things like that, have to pass at least 30 in-house tests before hitting the market. So you already know that they are going to be thoroughly tested over and over and over again before they can bring a product out and stand by it. So that's something great to know that's happening. The other thing is the design and the fabric of the inside of the bags is sometimes even more impressive to me than the outside. I mean, Tumi is not exactly the most flashy brand. They utilize mostly black. I mean, there's some silver. There are some bags that are a little more flashy, but they typically have very simple colors and everything on the outside. They're just really durable, and you know when you see the Tumi logo that it's quality. But the insides of the bags are really gorgeous and nice. So it almost makes you feel a little better when you open it up and you're like, ooh, my clothes are have a really nice home for the next week or two. It's just kind of nice. Or you have that suit that you have, and you're like, you know what? This is one of my finest suits, and I am not upset that it has to travel in this Tumi bag. So the fabrics inside and the quality you get are fantastic inside and out. Plus, most Tumi bags come with a global tracer device built in. This is something that you register. So you register your bag online, and what happens, and the reason you do this is because if you lose your bag or it's lost somewhere anywhere in the world, you have a much higher chance of having your bag returned, because they will be able to trace that bag because it's actually registered to you and there's a tracer and tracker on your bag. So if you have those, a lot of people have those luggage tags. You guys remember the days of making sure you had luggage tags on everything. You don't have to worry so much about that. Yes, you want your luggage tags just so you're not picking up somebody else's bag. But you can also register your bag too, which will help just in case that there's an issue or a mix-up wherever you're traveling to. And also, Tumi does some little bit of customization with it. They allow you to, for free too, once you purchase a bag, they have a little plate or a leather plate on all their bags, and you can put your initials or a name or something within that fits in within that, on that tag, so you can identify your bag. So I tend to put my initials in a certain color. I usually use red just because I like that, and I put my initials on there. My wife, I believe, used gold on hers, so she knows, and I think she just has her name because it fits it nice and small on the bag or her initials. So it's really a great way to identify without having to buy that extra bright red or pink bag that it's coming down the chute, right? And so now you know that if registering your bag, it can be found. So, Tumi also, this is also very interesting for those of you that don't know. Tumi is also the only travel company that uses Tegris Material. This is not material they invented. They purchased it. It's like a license that allows them to be the only luggage company that can make use of it. And you're sitting there, I have no idea what you just said. Tegris? What is Tegris? And I actually had to look this up. So Tegris Material, it's improved. It's basically an improved form of thermoplastic composite, which is excellent for impact resistance and stiffens. Okay? So you think about it. This is material that when your bag's getting tossed around, it is thoroughly tested because of the materials that it's made. So this Tegris material helps with impact and all this resistance, and it stiffens up and makes it much more durable. So this material is also lightweight and provides 2 to 15 times impact resistance over all other plastic materials. 2 to 15 times impact resistance. I mean, right there, that's got to make you feel fantastic about your purchase already, knowing that you're buying something that almost sounds and feels indestructible, yet it's still lightweight and looks good. And your clothes and everything inside is riding in style. So right now, I know you're sitting there drooling because they have a plethora amount of types of suitcases they have, from the smaller carry-ons to the larger bags that you want to check, to the duffels, to the backpacks. In fact, my first purchase that I got with Tumi was a carry-on suitcase. And another great thing about Tumi is because they know that they're a travel brand, and most of these higher-end luxury brands all do this, but Tumi is very good about this. They make sure that when they say you're buying a carry-on bag, that it is measured to the correct specifications of the airline's compartments. So if you're getting an international bag, you can get a specific bag that you know you're traveling internationally is going to fit in any type of airline compartment. One of the funniest moments I had when I was traveling, I had my carry-on and it was a domestic flight. And they have those slots when you give your boarding pass that if they think your bag is too big or too thick, they ask you to put your bag in there to test it. Because if it doesn't fit, then they make you check it, right? Because they want to make sure that there's enough room on the airline or on the flight for everyone bringing bags. Because a lot of people can carry two bags. You can carry two bags, right? A personal item and a carry-on. So I was coming up, and my wife's bag actually had more stuff in it, and she had to use her expansion. But it's smaller than mine. It's a little smaller than mine, and so it didn't look like it was bigger than the gate or whatever you call it, the little slot that you put your suitcase in. And even though hers would have fit in just fine with no problem. They let her go right on. And then they looked at my bag and they just, from the size, they go, sir, would you put your bag in this slot to make sure that it can fit in there? And I actually had the biggest grin on my face because that was the first time that I'd ever had that happen to me and ask. And I already knew that it was going to fit because Tumi does that. Their specifications and their measurements of their carry-on luggage is so that they can travel on airplanes. So I willingly picked it up and I put it in, and she just kind of looked at me and gave this, okay. Like I didn't realize that was going to happen. I think she was expecting an entirely different outcome. And it was just really satisfying for me knowing that my purchase already right there was making it known that it was exactly what they advertised. So I can't recommend Tumi enough. I mean, the other pieces I have, I have a larger bag that I can use to check on. I have my carry-on. I have a duffel, which is a really large rolling duffel that has 2 compartments, one up top and one underneath. So you can, if you have shoes or things that, or maybe dirty clothes that you don't want to put with the rest of your clean stuff, or things like that are easily padded on the bottom. You put your more delicate things, items on the top. You can. It's a really great bag because we tend to travel or try to take as little as possible. That one is only for very large trips where we're having to bring one checked bag, so we just use the one duffel and use our carry-ons. But I have my Tumi backpack. In fact, I use it almost daily for anything that I'm doing because it has its own slot for a computer. And this is great about their backpacks. Their computer it's in a little zipper on the back side that you put it in, and you don't have to take your computer out when you have these bags because it's actually meant for the computer when you register with it and you just open it. You just undo the zipper and lay it flat and it goes through. So you don't actually have to take your computer out and put it in those plastic bins where, it gets banged around or anything. It can stay nice and secure in your bag and it goes through the security. And this is you don't have to have a pre-check or anything like that with this. This is all the same. So those are just some of the quality things that you're going to get when you get a Tumi bag. And I can't speak more highly. I cannot recommend them enough. Now, again, there are other brands that if you're interested in that are very high quality. I've had other brands that are just as good. But Tumi, with the customer service that I've got, when I had a rip strap, I was able to send it back, and it happened to be just over warranty, and they actually helped me out at the store since it had just passed over warranty, and they fixed it, no cost to me. They used to have a lifetime warranty, which was great, but now I don't think any luggage brands have lifetime warranty. Briggs & Riley might, but Tumi, it's a 5-year warranty that you have. But even if you have to get something replaced after 5 years, if you think about that, spending $100 a year for a large suitcase, you might spend that for a cheap suitcase every year. It's completely worth it when you think about if you're a traveler that goes everywhere. But I guarantee you guys, after 5 years, you are still going to have these suitcases. I mean, given the fact that you're not out there trying to run them over with your cars or, drop them off a 100-foot cliff and test it out that way. But you are going to have this luggage for forever. To quote the Sandlot there, forever. I promise it's going to be worth it. And it's so great because when you find brands that you love, you're always looking to add on to that, because I'm one of those that loves to have unity with all my luggage because I just love that. It's kind of like all my electronic devices. I like them to sync up. Same thing with my travel luggage. And again, Tumi is a great company, and so they're always being innovative and they're upgrading their styles and suitcases and other items that they offer. So it's a one-stop kind of travel place that that you can get good quality things with, whether you're needing converters and adapters or, batteries, purses, other things like that. They even I even heard that they're doing a fragrance now. I'm not quite sure what that's about. It might have to be something I check out. I'm not quite sure if the luggage industry is ready to be, I don't know if I'm ready for fragrances to be being released with the luggage industry, but with a lot of those high brands, you can kind of expect that they're going to keep pushing the envelope. They're going to keep innovating, and most of all, the quality is going to be there. And that I can't speak higher enough about. I hope you've been inspired to take a trip this year or look to start planning one. It's never too late to start traveling. It can open up your eyes to new experiences, even unlock things about ourselves that we never knew. I believe everyone should travel and explore what this world has to offer. It can give us an appreciation and love for so many things. So let's get traveling.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast, part of the GSMC Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type in GSMC to find all of our shows from the GSMC Podcast Network. From travel to health and wellness to entertainment and life and happiness to sex and relationships. You can also follow us on Twitter and Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's episode of the Golden State Media Concepts Travel Podcast.